Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. And ha- woke up only recently, so
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see with me. It is Sunday.
yes, it is Sunday. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good. Yeah, just enjoying the weekend, but I'm moving soon, so just doing a little
Ah,
bit of preparations for moving, but other than that, business as usual.
got it. All right.
How about you?
I'm okay. Um, okay. So Taylor, that's your name. I just because I think you've been contemplating or thinking about name like your artist name changes a little bit.
Yep.
So what do you go by now?
So my artist name now is Rune, Rune. Yeah, I have changed it a few times over the years. I felt that the last iteration of my name just didn't really resonate anymore. So yeah, I changed it to Rune. Um, and yeah, I'm happy with it now.
That's good. So what's the story behind Rune then?
Yeah, so I was doing some research on different artist names that I liked, and I was kind of having a conversation with a friend, and originally I was thinking something along the lines of like a songbird or something like
Oh,
that. And then she suggested the name Wren, Wren, like the name of the bird.
yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I don't really like that name that much, but um yeah, maybe I'll look it up." And then when I was looking up that name, it there was this etymology page that said that it was related to the word rune, um Wrune, and somehow like it suggested that like a long time ago the etymology of the word rune that like is like runic symbols like originally came from this name for a songbird. So it was like the evolution of the name Wren for songbird eventually turned into rune. I don't even know if that's true. Like that might be total crap and that might not be true at all. But then that's at least what brought me to Rune. And I was like, oh, I was like, the name Rune is actually really cool. It's about like it has the connotation of like kind of mythology and like
Right.
symbolism and like an ancient language. And actually, runic symbols also used to be symbols for musical notation in certain
Oh,
senses as well. It also relates to like my personal heritage. I do have like a partially Celtic heritage,
okay.
both on the Irish and Scottish sides. And I thought it would be cool to also kind of like link my artist name to part of my heritage as well. Yeah, and I just thought it evoked this feeling of like kind of like magic. And I think that's one of the things when I am making any kind of art, I like want to evoke a sense of magic or a sense of kind of like mysticism. So yeah, I've never really articulated that all before, but that kind of is the long and the short of it.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah, and like you said, maybe the word itself is not even, you know, accurate or whatever, but that's how
Totally.
your name came about. And that's
Exactly,
cool.
exactly.
Nice. Yeah, and you're talking a bit about the magical element because I've always thought your music was. I remember sent you a message like a long time ago. About like it was like very ethereal to me. It was like
Okay.
kind of melancholic and ethereal and got that like angelic vibe to it. And yeah, and for anybody who don't know you, how would you describe your music?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. That's really, really nice. And that those words that you're using to describe my music are definitely what I strive for when
Mm,
I'm creating. Yeah, kind of evoking a sense of like ethereal, something being ethereal or otherworldly or inspired. So yeah, that's really nice of you to say. Um, yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, I think the way I would describe it would be soulful.
mm,
Um, I think that making music is a way of connecting with yourself and with your soul. And I mean, you can define that however you want to define that. But in any case, I think it's a way of connecting with yourself and bringing yourself out. So um, that's why I like soul music, because I feel like it gets into the kind of deeper aspects of yourself that you can bring out. Um, and whether that's, you know, difficult memories or like just a darker part of yourself that you want to bring out. I think that soul music does a really good job of embodying like all of that, and just like embodying like kind of like the more or letting you express the deeper parts of yourself, or letting you express the darker parts of yourself. I feel like whenever I listen to like old soul music, you can really like hear like the pain and sorrow of a person, but somehow it's really endearing, and somehow it's really just like raw and real, and it's nice to there is a resonance to that, and it's like nice to hear someone express their whole self. So yeah, ultimately I think soulful is one way that I would describe kind of the music that I'm making. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, neo soul, because I feel like I'm inspired by a lot of artists that are neo soul. For example, obviously the queen of neo soul, Erica Badu.
Yeah.
And then more kind of like modern contemporary neo soul artists like Hiatus Coyote, and um, there's also kind of more jazz leaning neo soul artists like Moonchild, or more R&B artists like Georgia Smith that I definitely am inspired by. Amy Winehouse has always
Okay.
been a really big inspiration as well. Um, and then also electronic music is a huge inspiration in my life. So an artist like Bonobo has always been my favorite, biggest inspiration probably of my entire life. And although I think that the music Bonobo makes is very complex and it's really difficult to get anywhere near sounding like Bonobo or creating music like him, I think that's definitely an inspiration, and it pushes me in a certain direction. So yeah, soulful, neo soul, and electronic would be the way that I would describe the music that I'm making. And then yeah, just I would like my music to be inspiring. I would like it to be ethereal. I would like it to have some sort of spiritual element to it. And yeah, those are the kind of the ways that I would describe it so far.
Nice. I like that. And interesting that you talked about, I mean, it seems obvious now, but you talked about, the sociable music as connecting to yourself and revealing the inner parts of your, and darker even. And now I think about it, I'm like, I guess many people talk about like, happy music or sad music. And when I think about soulful music, it's almost like there's not an obvious
No,
either or, right?
totally. Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, it's the aim of it's not to make like a happy dance track,
Right.
or the aim of it isn't to make a really sad, like gloomy song at all. I think it's just the point of it is just to make something that feels good to sing, and something that is cathartic to sing.
Right.
Um yeah, I think it just feels good to sing, and just that's the only way I can explain it right now. I think it doesn't really have like an intention otherwise, that it just feels good to sing.
Nice.
For me anyways, maybe it's different for other people. I think soul music also, I want to say that soul music also has a history rooted in African American culture,
Right.
and I do know, like I'm very much aware that I am not part of that history,
Yeah.
and I'm not part of that culture, um and that I'm a guest in that space. So I suppose I don't want to come off like I'm an expert or I am kind of a pundit in soul music at all, because it's not my own personal history. I just love soul music and I grew up singing soul music, and it's really special to me, and it's the music that I love and the music that really lights me up and that I resonate with. So yeah, I just want to highlight that I very much am a guest to the space of soul music.
Makes sense. And you mentioned singing it, and to me, as a singer, I mean, who does it, I don't sing at all, and I've been shying away from it. Don't want to do it. Um, these conversations might change my mind, but like for me, it's like it's very groovy, right? It's like it gets into your body. You want to move, you know. It's so interesting to see that you talk about singing it as a very definitive, a very important part of the aspect.
Totally. Yes. For me, singing soul music is very different than creating the instrumental to soul music. But for me, I don't know. I like singing is my primary instrument.
Right.
That's the instrument that I have been trained in the longest, that I have trained in the most extensively. So maybe I'm just biased because that is my own personal primary instrument. But yeah, I don't know. I've never felt the same thing personally on the piano or on the guitar, or just like listening to an instrumental track. To me, when I think of soul music, it's the voice that really does make it soul. um, I feel that's just my own personal perspective, though. I'm sure that there's piano tracks that you can listen to where you can hear the artist's soul in the music, but I think there's just something so intrinsically human about singing, and so intrinsically, like, it just is you. It is a representation of yourself. It's coming from your own body.
That's true,
Like,
right?
I think it is just like a closer approximation to your own self, in my opinion. I don't want to offend any amazing pianists or guitarists out there, but yeah, I think it's just, you can hear somebody's emotion in their voice so much more distinctly, just because that's how we're used to communicating, is by our voices. Again, like ancestrally, it's like the oldest instrument that exists is the voice,
Right.
um among humans anyways. But yeah, I don't know. I might be biased, but
I think that I think you're right, and it's actually very inspiring because I listen to like I rarely listen to instrumental music, and like vocals have always spoken to me. And I guess what you're saying that makes so much sense is that exactly because that's where you're connecting with the other human most directly. And, maybe people who are expert on the piano or something, they have gotten so good. It's like it's like their body, right? But like you said, voice is by definition yourself, and I guess you had to get good at using that too. But I like this way of thinking about it, that it is the most human, the most raw way of expressing yourself in music anyway. So I like that.
yeah, totally.
So then, speaking of singing, your voice, it's again because you speak this way, and your voice has such an interesting quality to it. Like, how did that come about? Slash, or like, how when did you start singing?
Yeah, so thank you for saying that and for asking all these really nice questions. Yeah, I started singing really, really, really young. I started taking voice lessons when I was probably 5 years old or something like that. But the voice lessons that I took when I was a kid were always like musical theater or classical. And then eventually I got to the point where I was only doing classical singing. So the Royal Conservatory of Music in Canada has this like 10 level program where you do exams, and it's very similar to the piano Royal Conservatory process. Basically, you have to do sight reading, you have to do ear training, you have to work on the pieces that are in the books, and then you have to do exams. So yeah, I did all levels of voice and all levels of piano in Royal Conservatory. And then all my teachers were opera teachers. So basically, yeah, I was learning from this very, very old school classical opera strict manner. Um, the the technique, I would say, it would be the biggest thing that I took away from that. And I think that because I studied so much of that technique growing up, I think it kind of just, I don't even have to think about it anymore. It's just very ingrained in like how I sing. Not to say that I still don't have to take care of my voice and a warm up before every single vocal session, or because I do. And there's still things that I'm learning continuously, but yeah, so I would say the big takeaway from the opera classical training was just the breathing technique, and like certain other singing techniques, certain warm-ups or certain ways of holding your mouth or getting resonance in the tone. But then yeah, so after probably when I was a teenager, my parents sent me away to band camp.
Okay.
Which sounds very hilarious still, even when I say it. And part of band camp was opera camp. And so this was at a university, and our teachers were like the head of the opera program at that university. And yeah, so again, that was like very, very classical, very old school, very opera. And that is actually where I got introduced to gospel music, because they wanted me to sing all these opera songs at a like recital, and I was like, oh, I don't really like that song. I don't really like that song. I don't really like that song. Nope, don't like that song either. And then they're like, okay, well, like, how about, do you like African American spirituals? Because we have some of those that you're allowed to sing. And then I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Let me hear that. I heard these African American spirituals that were on the list of songs you were allowed to sing. And I just really resonated with them. They were traditional gospel songs, and I was like, sweet, I like that. I'm going to sing that at the recital. So that's how I got introduced to gospel music. And then in tandem with that, my mom always used to play Motown music growing up. So that actually might have been why I liked the gospel music so much. Just because we always had Motown music going in our house, just like Marvin Gaye, like Motown Christmas music. Like it was very, very like old 60s, 70s soul R&B gospel. So yeah, that's kind of where I started singing gospel music. And then once I went to university, I started, I think, just getting to know myself better. And then that's where I heard the artist Bonobo, and he features a lot of soul singers on his in his music. And I was exposed to those singers, and I went to see a show of his that featured a soul singer, Andrea Triana, and there was a live orchestra as well. And like that's what made me decide to pursue music, was seeing that concert. And I became obsessed with listening to this soul singer's voice. And so I was like listening to it over and over again, and I was like, you know what, like I want to be able to sing like that. And so basically I just like, this is really, I don't recommend this technique to anybody, because all of the opera and classical teachers I've ever seen tell you you're not supposed to do this. But I just tried to like copy her voice. Like I just like sat there and listening to it, and then I was like, how do I sing like that? Like, let me like, and then I would record my voice, and then I would try to sing like that. And then I'd listen back and I'd be like, oh, there's something not quite right. And then like try again, and I'd like record into my phone. And then it just became this like process of like not copying anymore at all, but I got like I eventually went to music production school and I learned how to record my voice into Ableton. And it was just this process of like listening to my voice recorded a lot and practicing recording into the mic and then listening back. And then I think over time, I just like got closer and closer and closer to the sound that I wanted because I was doing so much listening to my own voice. Yeah.
That's interesting. So, like when you sing, I guess the voice you're hearing is different from the recording. So you had to kind of have like a third person perspective on your own voice then when you listen back, instead of like right now, oh, I sing, I can hear myself already.
I think my voice sounds, yeah, I just judge it by what it sounds like when, what it sounds like in my headphones or in my speakers when I'm playing it back.
That's cool. And it's interesting. And so by that time, you must have learned how to control your voice really well to be able to kind of then copy and change it into the way you want it then, right?
Yeah. And again, like my opera or my classical teachers would say that this is absolutely wrong and nobody should ever do this. You shouldn't contrive your voice to be a certain way. And it's not to say that it's hard it's not that I'm contriving it all the time. I'm just listening and I'm being like, oh, I think I could do a better take, and then I'll try a better take, and maybe that means that I have better breath support in the next take, or maybe that means that I drop my tongue a little bit, or I lift my palate up in my mouth a little bit. So actually it a lot of the time does have to do with technique. A lot of the time it does have to do with just like, oh, I just didn't have enough breath in the last take. And so therefore I didn't get the sound that I wanted. So yeah, a lot of it does have to do with technique. I don't know. Sometimes it just depends on the day and your voice just sounds different on different days. Maybe this morning I drank a bunch of coffee and my voice sounds different because I drank coffee. Or maybe I just ate a bunch of bread and so my voice sounds different that I just ate a bunch of bread. Like, or maybe I'm a little bit sick and my voice sounds different because I'm a little bit sick. Or maybe I talked too much yesterday and so my voice is a bit raspy. Like, you honestly get a different quality depending on what day it is, what time of day it is, how tired you are. Like if you did yoga earlier, like your body is so receptive to what you put in it, what you've done with your body that day. And I think that you just like get a different tone, like based on so many different variables. So like, I don't know, sometimes, yeah, you go with a take based on so many different reasons, or you want to redo a take based on so many different reasons. So it's not always about just like contriving the vocals to be a certain way. It's just like there's a million reasons why the vocal might not sound good to you at this moment.
Right. And I guess also means that it's helpful to experiment with like maybe adjusting a little bit here and there to see what your voice can do, right?
Totally, because the possibilities are absolutely endless. It's like you move your jaw a little bit to the right and then you have a completely
That's
different
interesting.
sound.
Yeah. That's really
So
interesting.
it's, yeah, a lot of people who aren't vocalists don't understand how much meticulous effort goes into recording your vocals. Not all vocalists or recording artists or producers are like this. I think I'm just very much a perfectionist, and also I like playing with my voice. I find it really fun to play with my voice a lot of the time, and like I'm producing myself. I think a lot of artists would prefer to just go into the studio, do 3 takes, just lay it down, be like, you deal with it. But for me, I would hate that. Like I've done that before where I've gone to a studio and worked with a different producer and then they're telling me to do things. I just feel too pressured. I feel like I don't know what I'm getting. I would rather do it at home and be able to really like listen back and be like, is that the take that I want to use? Obviously this is like, yeah, really meticulous. It's a big luxury. And you know, the live music performance game is way different than that. And I do live music a lot of the time where you're you don't get any edits, you don't get any second chances, and that's a whole different game, and that's cool, and I do that too. But yeah, I just think it's really fun to be able to be like, okay, I've got like limitless possibilities with my voice. Like, how can we make it sound the absolute coolest? And make it really match the vibe of the instrumentals and the vibe of the lyrics. And yeah, it's like craftsmanship is the way that I would explain it. And like that's why like my Instagram handle is Sound Sculptor, and that's why my like recording business is called Sound Sculptor, because I really do feel like when I'm sitting down and I'm singing, I'm like, and using this process that I've explained, where it's like I'm spending hours just like trying to find the right like vocal takes. It really is sculpting a certain essence or sculpting a certain sound. I really do feel sometimes like I am just like sitting there sculpting away at this formless piece of clay that will eventually be turned into something, but it's like a really arduous process to make it into something.
I think that's really cool. And so then that makes me think about so far you have I heard your EP from a long time ago or a few years ago, and now recently you had, not super recent, you had your full-length album then. So how was the two, how did the first come about when it was, I guess, mostly you, and the second I noticed you had a lot of collaborators. So that whole thing was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting that that's how it's perceived, or that's how you're perceiving it, because I actually felt like the first EP was a very collaborative effort, and the second and the full-length album was actually mostly solitary.
Oh, I think just because it says featured,
It might
whoever.
just be
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
says featured, but the first EP was actually I was actually after I left music production school, and the person who helped me engineer it was one of my teachers in music production school. And then so yeah, it was definitely, how do I explain the process? I'm trying to remember back. Yeah, so basically like I wrote and recorded the demos of all the songs into Ableton. And so basically I like produced all the demos. And a lot of the instrumentation, yeah, it was like some of the first compositions that I had ever fully just like produced myself. It was like, I would say like they were like very compositionally heavy pieces. Because I was also working on those pieces when I was in school for music composition, and I was working with a mentor in electronic music at school, who was kind of helping me through this process of building an electronic composition. So yeah, they were all very like compositionally complex songs. Even if they don't sound like that on the EP, all of them except for one were like very compositionally difficult. And there was a lot going on. Like I remember one of the tracks had like, one of the Ableton sessions had probably like 50 tracks in it or something like that. So it was like a lot to deal with.
Right.
And so that's why I brought in Alex, the engineer, who was my teacher from music production school. I was like, hey, I really need help engineering this. There's like so many tracks going on in each one. Like, I really need help. I'm trying to steer this in the right direction. And then he was like, okay, cool. He was like, okay, well, let's go to record some instruments and some live drums at the studio, and then we'll go from there. So I got a few musicians together, went to a studio and spent 2 days recording some live instruments to layer over top of the electronics, and that was really fun and cool. And then after that, Alex lent me his really, really expensive, nice preamps that I could use to record my vocals. So he dropped that off at my house. And then I spent the whole entire summer just like re-recording the vocals and all the vocal harmonies at my house. And then after I finished all that, I sent everything back to him, and then he helped me mix it. And then that took quite a few months. And then after that, we sent everything to mastering. The last song on the EP was, I kid you not, the quickest song I've ever written my whole life. I don't know how that even ever happened. It literally was a song. It's called Going, and it's just like an acoustic song. Oh, yeah. And I wrote that in 5 minutes when I was crying on my bed. And yeah, it was super weird. I've never had that happen in any other case before, but it was like a song that, yeah, literally just sat down, picked up the guitar, literally just wrote it in 5 minutes. And I was like, this is so weird. This has never happened to me. And I was like, okay, that's going to be on the EP too. And it was like 2 weeks before I was going to send the whole project to get mastered. And I don't even know. It was a very weird last minute addition. And yeah, it was cool though. I wish that happened more, but usually that's not at all how anything comes to be. But yeah, so that one was literally just guitar and vocals. So that was very easy. And then yeah, so that's kind of how that one came together. And then that was before COVID.
Right.
So everything was very in person and very yeah, just like with other humans other than me recording the vocals. The album, on the other hand, I was writing during COVID.
Okay.
And I did the whole entire thing in my apartment. Oh. Like, I mean, other than, of course, I worked with Johnny Tobin on a few tracks. But we never met in person. It was all just like email correspondences. I think we did maybe like one Zoom session or something like that. And I was like, hey, like, I really would like to collaborate in some way on this album. Like, I really like this A, B, and C song that you have. Like, do you have any beats? And then he sent me a couple beats, and I was like, yeah, this one and this one. And then I just like wrote stuff over top of it. And then I also like arranged his beats, basically. Like, he would send me the stems, and then I just like chopped and pasted certain sections of it that I liked. I deleted certain sections I didn't like. And then I would take certain instrumentals and then delete other instrumentals. And then in some cases I would add new instrumentals. I also mixed it in a certain way, so it sounded a certain way. And yeah, so that was like very collaborative, but all online.
Makes sense.
And then there were other tracks where I think there was a collaboration with my friend Rob Klein, which was a song from a really long time ago that we had started writing. And I had like his guitar loop from that song. And then I added like new drums to it. And then like I like chopped it up a bit. And then I like re-recorded the song. And then I just like sent it to him and got him to play on it again. And then after that, I think I asked another guitarist to add a rhythm section to it and then just email it to me. So like everything on this one was by email.
Right.
But yeah, I was definitely the producer. And yeah, there was definitely a lot of songs on there. But yeah, most of it was just people sending me beats and then me messing around with it. And I can't remember every single song on there and how each one went, but yeah. And then I had a different mixer that time who was working with me. That one was more of a collaborative effort because I took all the sessions and mixed a lot of it myself. Basically what he did was just put like different plugins on each track that I don't own and would be really expensive for me to own. So it was just a lot easier to get someone to put all their plugins that I cannot afford onto the sessions. um but yeah, in terms of like all the vocal levels and all the instrument levels with the album, it was mostly me doing that mixing. And then after all that, it got sent to mastering, and that's how album number 2 came about.
Nice.
Or sorry, album number 1, but
Yeah.
big project number 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So far you've mentioned a lot about all the sound sculpting, the voice. So how much does I'm assuming you write the lyrics as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
how much does that play into the creative process?
Yeah, it's a big part of it, but it's definitely like the earlier part of it. Like the first steps.
For you, the
Um
lyrics, you mean, is the first step?
yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, the lyric, I mean, they can be tweaked later on,
Mhm.
but usually that's like the very first, like as the song, before the song is even coming to be, or as the song is even coming to be written. Yeah, the lyrics are always usually like one of the first elements. But yeah, I feel like I have a really idiosyncratic way of writing songs that maybe other people don't relate to, but um yeah, usually what I do is I will find a beat that I really like,
Mm.
or get Johnny to send me a beat, or something like that. And then, or just a drum track, like a drum rhythm that I really like, or chords that I really like, or something like that. And then I will I'll either kind of start stream of consciousness writing to that, or I will just stream of consciousness start improvising a melody and random gibberish and random
Uh,
words to the music, or I will have like pre-written like poetry that I've written
right.
like in my Google Docs, just like pages and pages of stuff that I've like written before, and I'll like go while I'm listening, I'll and like improvising, I'll go through and I'll just start trying things. I'll start trying to sing those lyrics, and I'll be like, oh, does something like this fit, or does something like this fit? And then usually I'll be like, oh no, okay, like halfway through I'll be like, oh no, I remember this thing that I wrote before. And then like I'll scroll down to like page 5, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this poem that I wrote about whatever. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, this is the vibe. So then I'll start singing those lines. And then usually I'll like either write a bit more to that poem, or I will listen. I feel like I do so many different things, so it's like hard to say what the exact process is. But sometimes I will also just like turn off my mic, and I'll just go back and listen to the improvisations that I did, and then I'll pick out I'll like go a highlight with different colors, like what sounded good, and then I'll like listen to like what I was saying in what sounded good, kind of listen for what lyrics were in those highlighted sections, and then I'll write all that down in like a fresh Google Doc. And then I'll be like, okay, like are there any common threads here? And then I'll kind of try to put together like a little vocal comp in Ableton of like the stuff that sounded good. And then I'll try to like see if there's anything that naturally is already coming out
Mm.
in the lyrics. Like maybe I already like created something that actually works, and we can just stick with that. But if for some reason I haven't, then maybe I'll just try to fit some of the poem that I was referring to into the melody, and I'll be like, oh, okay, does this poem that I already wrote like fit into this melody? And then if that doesn't work, then I'll just try to come up with something on the fly that fits the theme but also fits into the melody. And then I'll try singing that. I'll be like, okay, does this work? And then if that works, then I'll just keep writing stanzas in that with those like poetry syllables. And then like so like once I have that like initial kind of pattern that I'm like, okay, this sounds good, then I'll just like keep writing the same amount of syllables.
Oh.
And then it's really easy to like kind of just like know like how many syllables you need in this verse,
Mm.
and like what is like the general kind of like rhythmic pattern and in that needs to happen in the poetry. And then this is maybe embarrassing, maybe not, but like sometimes I collaborate with ChatGPT. So
That's legit, I think.
sometimes it's really interesting because sometimes I'll be like, oh, like there's like this part of this sentence just like doesn't really fit, or like is there a way that I could say this in some other way? And then like I'll put that in ChatGPT. I'll be like, hey, like I can't find like a way to make the sentence shorter. Like, can you help me think of a way to make the sentence shorter? And then it usually gives me a bunch of options, and I usually don't take exactly what it tells me, but usually it sparks something. Like it's just nice to have like something to bounce off of. Like I don't know, maybe I'm a loner, but like I have not found this some perfect like collaborator that a lot of other people talk about. Like
Right.
a lot of people have like writing partners, or they have like, you know, like their husband who they write with, or like their best friend that they write with, but I don't have that. Like I have not found that in my life. So I do everything by myself. And like like if anybody wants to hate on me, then hate on me, but it's really because I'm a loner and I don't have a writing partner. So I need ChatGPT. Like I need it. Like I don't have someone to be like, no, Taylor, like your sentence is too long. Like I need ChatGPT as a collaborator. So come at me, but
I think that's really cool. I think that's really cool that you're making use of the technology, and like you said, you're not taking it as is, but as a way to, you know, yeah, kind of it shifts the way you think, sparks something a little bit different, and then you're ultimately
totally.
doing the decision making, right? So
Totally. It's like you need a sounding board, or you
yeah.
need like something to bounce your ball off of, like in order to get that momentum. Like it's really difficult to just like be in your own little vacuum brain. And like that's the magic and the beauty of ChatGPT. And like hate on it, anyone, as much as you want to, but like it's like you need something to bounce off of. You like, and if that's a robot, so be it.
I think so. I think you're right. And I'm used to that kind of stuck in my own head process of, and then the
Yeah.
ideas are just always the same, right? So,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, okay, I give up. I suck. You know, no point, right?
Totally. It's like you need to get out of your own mental loops.
Yeah.
Like you need to have a way of getting to the next level.
Hmm.
And I think that that's like a metaphor for so many things in life, and even just for like feeling blocked when you're like you have a creative block, or you
Yeah.
feel like you can't get out of your loop of just like sitting on the couch instead of doing creative work or whatever. Like you need to get out of your own mind, like whether you need to go talk to somebody, talk to a coach, or talk to a friend, and like figure out like how to get out of your head. Like yeah, you just sometimes you need that extra sounding board. Honestly, that also could be a book, like reading for some people. Like there's, for example, like The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. That's a
Yeah.
really, really good book for getting out of your head. Or there's other books that I swear by. There's one called The Success Principles that I really like. It's not so much creative based, but more so just like if there's like a goal you want to accomplish, that really helps me. Another thing that I don't usually talk about that has really helped me too, and that helped me a lot when I was working on my EP and album. I did have a coach, like a I don't even know how you describe her, like a life coach that I would talk to every once in a while, because I have a full-time job, like I have like a lot of life responsibilities, and like it's really, really hard to stick to the things that you are important for you in your life, that are fulfilling for you, when you feel like you're being pulled in so many different directions. So having like a sounding board person to talk to like once a month and be like, hey, like where are you at in your process? Like what are your challenges right now? What are your limiting beliefs? Like how can you get out of your head, and like how can you work towards accomplishing this goal that you really want? And like even like in that aspect of creativity, like figuring out how to fit creativity in your life, even with those kind of things, it's really important, I think, to have a sounding board to get out of your own mental loops, and to really be able to figure out how to like have the right mindset for living a creative life and being a creative person that has goals and like things that you want to accomplish. So yeah, that has been really important for me too, to be able to have a sounding board in that regard as well.
That's cool. Interesting. I never heard about. I mean, people talk about like a therapist or something, but I think life coach is in like, yeah, because you have things you want to achieve, and they're there to support that. Because I was actually wondering about that. It's like how people say sometimes, you know, find a writing partner or coach or a mentor, but like, how did you find the coach?
Yeah, so I think that that goes back to when I was in university, and I think I was feeling pretty lost about like what to do with my life.
Mm,
Um and I had tried so many things. Like I think like a lot of people have the luxury of like having a parent who really helps guide
mm,
you through like trying to figure out what your purpose is in life, or trying to figure out like what to do with your university degree,
mm,
or like even what to do in university, or like what your career path should be or whatnot. I didn't really have a lot of support from my parents. So like I feel like I was trying everything to
mm,
try to figure out what to do. I also like did not have like the luxury of like money, or like
mm,
the luxury of like having really like any aspect of my life set up, which I'm sure many people can relate to, that like you're kind of just like as a young person like spending so much of your time just like figuring out how to even like eat, or like pay your rent, or just like go to school and also have a job. So yeah, I felt like I was just like really like had no idea what I was doing. um and so yeah, I like literally just did a Google search and was like, is there like any like kind of like life coach I can talk to, or career I think it might have been like from a career coach
mm,
point of view. I think I was like Googling like career coaches. And then yeah, I like one of the people that I found was this woman, um, Jessica Manka, who's absolutely amazing. And she had like a free like 1 hour session or something
okay.
like that. And I was like, sweet, I'm gonna do a free 1 hour session. That sounds awesome. And then I was like, wow, I was like, that was so helpful. That was like one of the most helpful things like I've like ever experienced, like just having someone who would listen to like
Mm,
me trying to figure out like what I'm gonna do with my life. And yeah, I'm sure everyone's had that like pivotal moment in the early 20s where you're just like, I don't know, like I need to make a decision here. Like what path am I going down?
mm,
Like, and it feels really momentous and pivotal at that point because you're like almost done university and you're like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Um, so yeah, I spoke with Jessica and it really, really helped me. She has this like workbook that she like sent me in the mail.
yeah,
And okay, I'm sure many people would think that that was so cheesy. That's like the weirdest thing that would never work for them or whatever. But for me, somehow that really worked. It really helped me hone down on like the things that like were important to me and that like I wanted in my life. And because I didn't have a parent who was like able to help me with that, like it was like one of the most life-changing things that like anybody had ever done for me. So that's kind of like how I started working with Jessica. And then she ended up helping me with so many things in my life, from getting an acting agent again
mm,
to finishing this EP and finishing this album, and so many other things, like getting like making sure like I have like a full-time monetary income, and
mm,
like not that she's done any of those things, but just like having somebody to talk to about that
right,
all like was so important for me to be able to like achieve these things. Again, like coming from an upbringing or like where like I didn't have a lot of support, like it was just like I wouldn't have been able to do all those things without having somebody um that was able to be like a sounding board. Obviously, like I did have to pay her, but like it was like one of the best investments that like I've ever made in my artistic life, my career life, whatnot. And yeah, I mean, it's weird to talk about because I feel like it's kind of maybe a taboo
right,
subject or
right.
something like that. I feel like people don't really talk about this kind of stuff very often. But I think it's important to share because there might be other people who are in that position where they're like, oh, well, I can't pursue being an artist because, you know, I don't come from a family of money, or I can't pursue being an artist because, like, you know, I don't even have a job that's going to pay me X amount of money. And being an artist is a really, really difficult career path to make money. So yeah, I think it's important for people to know that like you can just be an artist for your own personal fulfillment. You can do something else to make money, and like it does, like you can do both, but I think that you need some kind of support to be able to do both emotionally or you know, in terms of having a sounding board.
I think so. And I think like for me, just I'm not doing anything close to what you're doing. But it's like you get that doubt all the time of, you know, like is I have all these other responsibilities, you know, what's the
Yep.
point of doing music anyway? Like I should just drop it, right? So I like yeah, that's really, really, really inspiring and have a lot of good ideas planted. That's good.
Totally. And to be totally honest, again, like maybe I'm just saying this because I think it might help somebody else. But this past year, I've also had those thoughts of doubts because I'm working on another album that seems to be taking a really, really, really long time. But I've had all those doubts this year that you're talking about. And so like there's been many moments where I've been like, oh, maybe I just shouldn't do this anymore. Maybe I shouldn't do music anymore because it's too hard to do it while I'm also trying to, you know, make money, pay my rent, buy groceries, all those things. And then it's like also the added pressure of like, okay, like, you know, do I want to have a family in the future, or do I want to buy a house in the future, or do I even like when I'm finished work, like do I just want to relax instead of needing to do more work? Because let's face it, creative work is work.
Yeah.
And even though it might not have immediate financial payoffs, or it might not ever have financial payoffs, it still is work. And like even though it's fun and it's fulfilling and it's satisfying and it's inspiring, that doesn't mean it's not work. Like it still very much is labor. So there's, I think for me the biggest doubt this year has been like, okay, well, like I just spent the whole day at work, like now I'm gonna go do more work. So I think it's really trying to like find that balance in yourself and try to find the right mindset and to make sure that you're aligned in your values, and like in your purpose in life, and just be really clear on like what it is that you want, and like not just what you want in the immediate gratification of, well, I need rest after work, but like what is really important to you at your core? Would you be, if you just rested after work and like didn't pursue music anymore, would you be happy in 5 years looking back at that decision? For me, no. I would regret. I know that I would regret it, even though I might not feel like doing it right now. Like I know that I would regret it in a few years. That's not to say that you shouldn't take breaks or you shouldn't take time off, because I think that that's really useful to take time off and to take breaks, especially if you're burnt out. I did have a period of being burnt out this past fall, and I had to take a couple months break. But I think it's, yeah, that's why I think the support aspect is so important, because I think if you have some kind of sounding board in your life or some kind of support in your life, then maybe you can prevent getting burnt out. Or maybe you can like just have a better mindset, or you can have better motivation, or you can be more aligned with your values and more aligned with your purpose, rather than just kind of keeping it all just in your own head, because that's what I've really struggled with this year. I didn't have a coach for a few months because I was like, oh, I have so many bills, and like life is expensive and inflation and all this stuff. I was like, I can't afford extra stuff right now. But then I went through a period of just like burnout and like not doing anything and like feeling like I wasn't like moving forward in my process. So I don't know. I really do think that it's if there's something that you want to fulfill in your life outside of your day job, I think making those investments in yourself can be kind of a make or break, or just finding ways to get that support in whatever way that you can get. You know, that could look different for everyone.
Right. Like ChatGPT, for example. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know people who use ChatGPT like a therapist, basically.
Right.
I don't personally, but yeah, use ChatGPT to your advantage.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And I like how you talked about the creative work is work. You know, it has work aspects to it. And I think that's a very important reframe for me personally, at least. It's like you go into this thing that you decide on doing for yourself, so it's like a hobby, it's a passion, which makes it sound like it's supposed to be enjoyable all the time. And that's why we do it. But I guess it's like, so then when you hit a block, you're like, okay, maybe it's because I wasn't supposed to be doing it. But when you talked about it being work, it's like, okay, this hard part or boring part is part of the process. And so you just kind of, keep going, or like you said, take breaks, but instead of seeing that as a hint that you should stop.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of different ways to look at that, but I think that there's always going to be boring parts to anything, or like less fun parts. But you just have to realize that those boring or less fun parts actually feed the fun parts. Those boring or fun parts, or boring or not fun parts, are actually part of it's like the yin to the yang, right? Like the boring part is the yin to the fun part in when you're doing any kind of creative work. But yeah, I mean, I think there's ways to set up your workflow so that you stay inspired and you stay motivated. For example, there's something I've been recently implementing where like at the beginning of any session, I'll just do like 10 minutes of something really fun. So like, okay, like what's like the most fun creative thing that I can think of right now? Is it maybe writing poetry right now? Just like random stuff that like I have no limitations on? Or is it like looking for beats on the internet? Or is it listening to some music? Or is it just like picking up the guitar and just like playing random stuff? Is it taking the piano out and literally just playing gibberish on the piano? Finding a beat and just singing improv over top of it?
Right.
Or like just doing something like creative free form at the beginning of the session. I would say that recently I've just been working on stuff that is really fun. I haven't, because I got so burnt out, I feel like right now I'm kind of just getting back into the momentum of creative work after taking a break. So right now I'm kind of just, my whole entire sessions are just whatever I want right now. And I'm hoping that eventually just like leads me back into more productive work. But right now, yeah, I am just looking at it as just fun, which I think is really important to like keep that. At the same time, yeah, if I do want to like release a song, I'm gonna have to like really like get into the nitty gritty and like start like mixing things, or like start like chopping and pasting things and whatnot. But yeah, I guess I think everyone's process is different, but for me, I just want to get back into the creative habit. Like I think that like creative work is like, it's also like a habit, like in the way that like getting up and making breakfast is, or like going to the gym is, or something like that. It's just like a habit that you have to build in your life. And I think that once you've really, really solidified the habit of like, okay, every day after work or 3 days a week after work, I sit down and I do my creative work, like eventually you just kind of like ingrain that so much that you're just always doing that. But I think at the beginning, if you're like not used to that being a habit, I think just like building that in your life in a way that's like fun for you, and just like I think it's really important to just like maintain that like fun mentality of play, because like when I was a kid, I remember like I always did piano lessons in the classical genre, and it was always very rigid. It was like every time I went to a piano lesson, it was always like, okay, you just play scales on the piano and then you read the sheet music, and like everything was very like rigid. When I was a kid, I was never allowed to just like smack on the piano or just like play random notes or just like do anything I wanted, right? So like I feel like if you're a person like that, I feel like it's really important to be able to maintain that sense of just play and freedom, and just like start your session just playing whatever you want on the piano. Like don't worry about notes, don't worry about scales, just play whatever feels good or whatever sounds good to you, and just like have fun with it. But I mean, if you're a person on the other side of the spectrum where you never had any boundaries and everything was always play in your upbringing, and maybe you do need a bit more discipline, and maybe you should, you know, like give yourself more structure in your sessions. But yeah, I think just like while you're building that habit, make sure it's fun. But then as you get more serious and more further along into the habit of creativity, I think you definitely could start looking at it as if it's more disciplined. For example, like a lot of people talk about creative work as like, okay, like you could just look at it as if like that's your only purpose in life, and it's like very monk-like, and like all literally just dedicate your whole life to it, just like put everything you have into it, like, and just like look at it as if you're a monk and you just want to reach this higher spiritual level, and like just give it everything you got, and that's your only purpose, and like basically go to a cabin in the woods for a few months and don't talk to anybody and just create something. There's literally books that like have these recommendations in them. So like these are not my ideas. These are just like other people's creative theories. There's people that say, there's people on either end of the spectrum. There's people that say you just have to wait for a strike of inspiration. I don't agree with that. I'm more towards the other side, where like you see creativity as a job or work, and you just like, or a habit, and you just like you go to your creative space, and you just work as if it was a job. Whatever happens you're working from 6 to 9 p.m. and even if nothing comes, even if nothing really works, you still go back to your desk from 6 to 9 p.m. every day, or you know what I mean? And it's like, and in our day jobs or in our regular jobs, even if we don't want to be there, we do have some kind of output when we're at our desk from 9 to 5. Even if we don't want to be there, even if we are not feeling inspired that day, it's like we still get something done. So why could it not be the same for creativity?
That's really interesting.
Like, so that is one perspective. Again, that's not my idea. That's like from a book I read, but like like you could look at it as if it's a job, as if you've got this set time to work on something, and even if you don't get anything done, at least you sat down and you tried. And yeah, there's lots of ways to look at it. There's also like an accountability aspect to it that I find when I'm working with a coach, where I'm like, okay, like, yes, I did all this creative play, but at least at the end of the month, then I have somebody to talk to about what I did do. And then inherently that actually like makes me come up with something coherent. Like, just because I know that I have to someone to talk to about it, or someone to present to. Like a lot of the times too, like I remember when I was doing my album, I was so frustrated in how long it was taking and how slow the process was. And I was like, I need to inject some sort of immediacy and some kind of urgency into this process, because otherwise I'm going to just drag it on forever and ever and ever, and I'm never going to get anything done. A lot of artists say that they have a million unfinished pieces. The hardest part is literally just finishing something. So before I was even done, I think maybe I was only halfway done my tracks. I called up this mixer guy and I was like, hey, I've got tracks ready for you. And basically it's like a fake it till you make it kind of move, where I was like, I'm not going to get anything done if I don't give myself a deadline or have somebody to deliver something to. So basically I just like called him up. I was like, yeah, I have got tracks for you. I'm going to send them to you next Friday. And I was like, they were only halfway done. Like, they were not good. And I ended up like messaging him and be like, oh, hey, actually I have a few more things. So like I did drag it out like an extra week or something like that. But I ended up getting these tracks done in 2 weeks. And that never would have happened if I hadn't injected some level of urgency into it. So yeah, it's like this delicate balance. You don't want to like pressure yourself too much, but you just have to know when you've la-di-da'd enough. Like, okay, I've been working on this thing for a year. Okay, now it's time to like really like crack down. I'm just gonna drink a bunch of matcha for the next 2 weeks. Maybe I'll take a 2-week vacation and I'll just stay home. And I won't go on a vacation. I'll just stay home and I'll use that 2-week vacation from my day job to work on finishing this album. And yeah, sometimes you do have to crack the whip on yourself if it's important to you. But if you're just doing it for fun and you don't feel like you want to put something out into the world, then don't worry about it. Don't put any pressure on yourself. Literally just do it for fun. But if you want to put stuff out into the world, like I do, it's really important to me. Sometimes I do need to crack the whip on myself and like treat it more like a job.
Nice. Yeah. And that's really, really cool. And one thing that kept jumping out to me all the way from like the vocal stuff is you mentioned a lot about the trying different things and how, and then you talk about you read this book here, you have this coach to talk, or ChatGPT. That's really interesting because, again, personally, a lot of times when I sit down and I'm like, want to do something, I start rigid. And I'm like, oh, I gotta know what process. I gotta know, do I start with lyrics or do I start with, melody or something? I don't know music theory, so I don't know how to write a song. But it's like, I like that it's a thread here of you just try, you just start doing something. You just say something to ChatGPT and be like, yo, and then you get something bouncing back. You play a note, it rings to you a little bit. So there's this a lot of back and forth to get out and start moving, and I think that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, no, thanks for reflecting that back, because that's 100% exactly it. I think that this was one of my preconceptions as I was starting to learn about music. I had this, and I struggled with this for a really long time, because I also come from a like academic training where things have to be done in a certain way,
Right, yeah.
or even a music training that things have to be done in a certain way. It's like you have to read the notes on the page and play them in this rhythm and in this time signature, and you kind of get slapped on the wrist if you don't do it right, so to speak. But that's actually that's a creativity blocker. That's a creativity sucker. That's like actually the complete opposite to like how creativity works. And it's like almost this like secret that like nobody told us, or like this false narrative that I think growing up in like suburbia gives you. For some reason.
That makes sense, yeah.
But yeah, it really, how do I say this? Yeah, you have to give yourself permission to try things and to be free, and to not have constraints. Yes, go to school and learn the music theory, or you don't even have to go to school these days. You could go to YouTube or take an online course or something like that to learn all that music theory. all that music theory is really valuable to know. It's really great to know. But when I'm writing something, like maybe if I'm stuck, I'll go to music theory. But for the most part, 90% of the time, I don't go to music theory. Like I just go to what sounds good. And I've heard that from so many musicians and so many people who have gone to school for their masters or whatever with music. And like, yes, learn that all. Spend your time. I did spend time learning that. I got a tutor after I left music school. I felt like I still hadn't learned all the things that I wanted to learn. So I hired a tutor that I saw maybe once a week for like a year, someone who was like an expert in music theory. And like I learned, I really did put in the time and I spent all the time. But like, I don't know, I tried writing from this point of music theory, from jazz music, from like jazz theory, where you're using like secondary dominance and you're using like chromatic mediants and tritone substitutions and like all these things. And like I have tried writing in those ways. And I've never written something that I loved writing like that. Sometimes what I find helpful is that sometimes like I'll use like modes or like certain scales. I'll try different modes, like when I like singing them like over top of like a chord progression or like over top of like a certain beat or whatever. And like but that's, yeah, maybe that's more just because I'm a singer and it's like nice to try different scales. But yeah, in terms of like writing something from the ground up from music theory, like I don't know, I find it a lot easier to write from a place of inspiration. So like being like, oh, like this song really inspires me, or this beat really inspires me, like, okay, let's play around and try to like evolve this beat into something new. Or like, oh, this chord progression is really cool, like I'm playing around on the piano and this chord progression is really cool. I'm not associating it at all with music theory. Maybe like I'll go and like I'm like picking this chord progression because it sounds good. And then maybe like, okay, I'll like go to music theory and I'll be like, okay, what are these chords? And I'll like write it out. And then I'll be like, okay, like, is there a chord that we could be inserted in here that fits with this progression? Okay, yeah, I'm using music theory for like a fraction of a second, but like it's not like the whole thing isn't music theory. It's like a really like, it's like if you need it, it's like an extra tool that you can use, but it's like 90% of it is just what sounds good, and maybe like the remaining 10% or even less is like drawing from music theory. But it was one of the misconceptions that I had, that you had to be like a PhD in music theory in order to write good music, or write music that's worthy of merit or something like that. You have to like have this like be at this level that like nobody else is at. And I think that that's a mistake. And I think that that's like, I think thinking like that is really limiting, and I think it really limits people, and it kind of gatekeeps music, and it makes it inaccessible for other people. Okay, that's not to say that I don't think that some music is bad, because like I feel like there's some like, just to be honest, like I feel like there's some music that people are making that's just not good, and like and mostly because it's a copycat of something else, or because it's overly simplistic, because it sounds like it's like a nursery rhyme, and it's like it doesn't have any like depth to it, or it doesn't have like a level of like complexity to it. And that's my personal opinion. That's my subjective opinion. I feel like I hear music like that all the time. It just sounds the same. They're not doing anything new. They're not kind of breaking new ground, or they're just not creating something that sounds like it's like pulling me towards it. I'm really picky with music, and to me, like I feel like I can tell when someone has really labored over the music, or has been really inspired in what they're writing. And I feel like I can hear that inspiration, and I can hear the newness, and I can hear like like the depth. I think when I don't hear that sometimes, I'm just like, yeah, okay, this person has not put in the work to like create something new or something that has depth to it. So I definitely think that there's like a difference, but at the same time, I don't think that like music should be gate kept
Mm.
To just only those people who have a PhD in music theory. Like I think that that's absolute crap. And like I always had that misconception that like if I don't know as much as this person, then I'm not ever going to be a good musician. Or I'm not a musician in the first place if I'm not like, you know, able to like shred on the guitar like that guy or shred on the piano like that guy. Okay, well, maybe they have a different skill. Maybe their skill is shredding on the piano, but they're not writing music,
Mm.
you know? So like I don't know. I think that it takes a certain amount of courage and a certain amount of like willing to experiment to write music. Like it's a completely different skill
Mm.
than like just being able to play proficiently
Mm.
or be able to play beautifully or whatever. Like writing and composing is like it's really like you have to put yourself in this like childlike
Mm.
state of like play
Right.
that not every shredder or technical jazz player has that ability
Mm.
or has the patience to be able
Mm.
to sit down and do that. Um, so yeah, I think it's just like a different skill set, and it absolutely does not require like needing to be this top level expert. I think what it does require is commitment
Mm.
and dedication to exploring and trying to create something that is new and that comes from yourself and not just a copycat what everyone else has done.
I love that. I like that a lot. So I actually have a few other thoughts, but it's been like what, almost 90 minutes. Do you do you have anything else you want to talk about? I'm actually curious about because you talk about trying things. I was gonna ask you about acting, but that's like going into different direction. But I think it's you wrapped up the music aspect really well with this. With again, I think the home. It's in. I'm like at home and I'm on Reddit all the time on and music theory. Actually, when you thought they were like all nerds and they're gonna tell you what's right or wrong, but they actually all tell you it's about what sounds good to you. Like the
Yeah.
theory tells you maybe what's possible or it's some vocab for the language, but at the end, like you're picking out what sounds good to you, and
Yeah.
that is and I love that you reiterated that point.
Totally. Yeah, and I think just what you were saying about the language, like it's good to know music theory because it's a language. And it's similar to how I went to music production school and just like learning all the technical language of like studio gear or different kinds of like tones that you can get in the recording, and like it really is just like beneficial to be able to use that knowledge, being able to use certain technical language in the recording studio or technical language
Mm.
pertaining to music theory, being able to use that to communicate to other people what sound you're looking for,
Mm.
or being able to communicate to the internet or ChatGPT
Mm.
or whatever. Okay, I'm trying to go for this sound. Like, what could make it sound more jazzy? They're
Mm.
probably going to tell you it's going to be like add a seventh chord or add an 11th chord or
Right.
like sorry, add like an 11th or a seventh note to
Mm.
your chord.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of the time that's what theory is for, or that's what technical language is for. It's just like being able to communicate better what you're looking for if you're not getting that from what you're currently doing.
Yeah. Nice. That's good. So do you want to talk a bit about the acting thing? Like, does it? I'm curious. Like, does it somehow feed back into your music, or is it like just another thing? Or
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I do think that I am a big proponent for different creative
mm,
disciplines feeding into each other.
nice.
I have a lot of thoughts about that, and I do think that one thing definitely enriches the other.
Mm.
um I think that they can grow together simultaneously. I think that you can definitely like apply certain learnings about creativity from one to the other. So I definitely do think about that a lot. I can't think of a specific example right now. Well, actually, one example that I can think of is many acting teachers say that in order to be a good actor, you have to really be present in the moment with the lines that you're speaking. And let yourself discover the words as you're speaking them, and let yourself be surprised by how you're saying the words, as opposed to planning out how you're going to say each line before you say it. Like I feel like this is a trap that many actors fall into, that they'll rehearse the line. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to say the line like this. I'm going to like pause here, and I'm going to have this intonation and this inflection at the end of the sentence. And like, they're like going through and like planning out like each thing, like how they're going to say it. But the acting school that I come from is more so, okay, like, how do you identify with this character? Or like, what, like on an emotional level, like what experiences have you had in your life specifically that are like what this character is feeling, or like this line that this character is saying, like what is an example in your life when you felt like that, and then maybe make a note of that right beside that line. And then it's more about like remembering the emotion that corresponds with the emotion that character is feeling, and kind of trying to like overlay your own experience, your own personal experiences on top of the character's experiences. And it's similar to, say, like recording or singing, where like you don't plan out exactly how you're going to sing it. Maybe there's like certain things here and there, but when you're like creating or you're improvising, you let yourself be surprised. You're like, sometimes you'll record something, you'll be like, I have no idea where that came from. I have no idea how I came up with that line or that way of singing that in that moment. Like, that was a total surprise. And that's like the fun part about creativity, or about recording, or about writing a song, is sometimes you'll just play something or sing something and you don't know where it came from. It's just like it, but those are the beautiful moments, and those are like the things that you want to capture, and that's what you're looking for. Like, it's almost like when you're writing a song, it's almost like you're exploring, or you're finding something rather than contriving. So it's like, or you're almost like stumbling upon something, or you're being surprised by what's coming out of you, rather than just like contriving something to make it sound like something else. So it's very similar when it comes to speaking lines, because the acting is always going to be better when you've surprised yourself, and when you've spoken it in a natural way, or in a way that's going to be different every single time. Every single time that you do it, it should be different. If it's the same every single time, that's bad acting. Like, that's just copying. So I think it's similar when it comes to music, and it comes to recording and creating and writing. Like, if your performance is the same every single time, then that just means you're copying someone else, or you're copying yourself the first time that you did it, and then that's not creativity. That's just copying. So so yeah, I do find there's quite a lot of parallels. That's the one that sticks out to me right now, but there's probably more. I just can't remember.
But that's awesome. That's really cool that you see all this creativity, and you spoke a lot about that, this creative process and stuff, which I'm always fascinated by. So that's really good. And it's been a really nice talking to you about all this. Do you have anything else you want to add at all?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, that was really nice to chat about all of that. You asked really good questions, so that was really nice. And yeah, it's cool to speak all these things out loud. I don't often get a chance to talk about the creative process, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously such a big part of my life. So yeah, it's great to chat about.
Awesome. All right, and yeah, I'll definitely have you on if I ever get bigger, and we have more to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's always a lot to talk about with
Awesome.
creativity.
Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.